Hi, Corrine Maury here, terminated nurse from Nelson, BC. I do have a YouTube channel under my name, and there's a few videos there that will give you a little bit more information. Today's issue is Bill 36 that is moving through the BC legislature this week. It's a Healthcare Professionals Act, and there are significant concerns around this. I am going to tell you a little story of what enabled this government. I don't want to say bad words. The government's agenda to move forward this week, because without these pieces that have occurred over the last year, this wouldn't have happened right now. A year ago, BC nurses were terminated for not complying with the COVID vaccination. Our union has taken a position previously that they would always protect the nurse's right to her own or his or her own decision in terms of vaccination, as we have the professional ability to determine what it is that is good for our own bodies. When the public health orders were coming out that termination was going to occur, we expected our union to intervene for us and protect us. We then discovered this wasn't going to happen. So September of last year, our president went on, the president resigned, the vice president went on medical leave, the CEO that was hired went on leave in December, the regional reps, many of them went on medical leave, and the only people left were ones who were not educated or experienced in the union processes. What we have discovered is during the months that nurses were terminated, the building was empty. There was one person out of the whole executive that was working in the union at that time. Come January, the CEO who had went on leave, that position needed to be replaced because our collective agreement, which is the rules of the employment conditions between employees and employers, that agreement was expiring March 31st, and a new agreement was going to have to be drafted. The position was filled by a man named Jim Gould. Now, I have to be very careful here that I'm not going to make any insinuations about anything. I am just going to tell you facts. Jim Gould is a partner of the legal firm that is retained by BCNU for the purposes of legal counsel in bargaining. He is a partner of that firm. As we move through the winter, terminated nurses, I did do a Freedom of Information request from all the health authorities. There were thousands of nurses that were terminated. And also between the months of November 30th to June 30th, there were over 20,000 COVID sick calls from double vaccinated nurses. So we know the vaccination did not work. During the spring, we were communicating with the union, asking them what they were doing for us, because the only legal mechanism that the union uses to ensure that the employer follows the rules is a process called the grievance process. This process historically has been whenever there has been a termination or suspension, within 90 days, the grievance needs to go to an arbitrator. So a third party makes a ruling if there cannot be a decision between the employer and the union. What ended up happening is we are now a year into our grievances, and it has become clear that the union has not processed our grievances at all. So we currently now have nurses who are qualified, experienced, ready to work in this province and are on welfare because they are denied the ability to work and they couldn't get EI. They were denied that as well. As we progress through this, we then, in late September, filed a complaint to the BC Labour Board against BCNU. Our complaint is Section 12, which is they have failed in their duty to fairly represent us. We have thousands of pages of evidence to prove that our union has deliberately walked away from us, ignored us, silenced us. From last fall, they refuse to talk about us, they refuse to acknowledge that we exist, and they refuse to do their job. Their job is to file grievances and protect their own members. They've refused to do that. 2 weeks ago, several of us terminated nurses showed up in Vancouver because the union was having their annual convention. And because the union has refused to communicate with us, we thought we were going to show up in person so that they would have to discuss with us face to face. We courteously let them know the day before that we would be arriving. Their response was to ensure that there was security all over the convention to block our access to speaking to other members and to speaking with them. Luckily, we're smart, and we were able to get around the security and forced a meeting with the executive. In this meeting, this is some of the things that were addressed. We stated to the executive that they were legally obligated to remove Jim Gould as the CEO from the union. His capacity of working in that position as CEO means that in day-to-day operations, he can refer work to his own legal firm, of which then he financially benefits. Now, they can actually make that agreement when he was hired, that they have gotten counsel and they've worked around this. We have asked for those notes. We have asked for that report. They have not provided it. So we have an issue with a conflict of interest. The second thing is the union actually has $60 million set aside in a defense fund that is set up for job action. Now, the last time job action occurred was 2006. The rules are you cannot initiate job action or strike until you're in bargaining, which they have not started. Then there has to be an impasse. They are unable to come to an agreement. And then from there, our side would ask the other side, can we go on strike? And they can say no. This fund of $60 million is only required to have $25 million in it for resources. That fund has been stockpiling millions of dollars. None of it has been used to assist their terminated members. We now have a problem where unions are given a tax-exempt status. They are considered to be a nonprofit organization because they do not file taxes. They are not required to disclose their financials to the degree that even you as a private citizen has to. So now what we have is we have financial statements that say on the very first page, the accountant has said, we are giving a qualified opinion, which means we actually haven't verified any of this information. And that is industry standard. So we have issues now with financial problems. We also, in the meeting, discussed with the executive that it has come to our attention that Jim Gould is the only person that has been having talks with the government. That none of the information that he is having in these meetings is actually filtering through to the executive and is not coming down to the members. This was actually admitted in the meeting. Jim Gould said that he has to protect his conversations with the government, otherwise they will not tell him things. And he stated to us that every time he talks to the government, he is bringing up the terminated nurses. There is no evidence to prove this. So now we are moving into Bill 36 and Adrian Dix. This healthcare professions bill removes all third-party accountability and oversight for all of the healthcare licensing bodies, so your College of Nurses, College of Dentists, etc. The government's position is they're going to remove all of the board of directors. They're going to appoint their own people. They're going to condense down the 24 colleges to 6, and healthcare professionals such as counselors, etc., who previously have not been under a licensing body will be required to be controlled by the government. So now we have a problem where this bill is moving forward. Now, last night, we were able to have a Zoom with an MLA who I was so grateful to know that there are still political leaders out there that have some integrity. And the issues that some of these members of legislature are having, and even their difficulty to get adequate oversight and questions, and they're getting overrun too. So this is what we were told. This bill has over 650 items in it. The legislature has spent the last week. They've only been able to get through 60. They have all sorts of questions about what is going on, but they are not being given any more time to go over the rest of the items that are in this bill. Most of the MLAs do not understand the depths of the changes or the potential for problems that are going to be in it, and they are being refused the ability to discuss or to have more questions around it. They have been told that this bill will be passed this week. So it's either going to be a vote or something called a conclusion where Adrian Dix is going to just make this law. He told us that the only power we have is to now inundate our MLAs with emails, phone calls, in-person visits, and let this government know that if they continue to push this stuff through, then we are going to do everything we can to remove this NDP government from power. All I can say is, if this bill goes through, my personal opinion is that any nurse that has been terminated in this province and any other healthcare worker who's been terminated from this province will never get a job back here. I don't know if we can actually recover from something that is a law. So up until this point, this public health order was only reinforced because of the Emergency Measures Act. There has been significant pressure put on Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix to provide the scientific evidence to justify their mandates, their orders. They have never produced it. And so that was part of what was going to happen in the court cases that were scheduled to happen the end of November, which are now delayed, is that there has been no evidence to justify the decisions that have been coming from our government. And now they are pushing it into law. So that is, I think, big picture. I want you to be aware. I want you to know of what's going on in what we are discovering with our nurses union. And I can tell you that this is not an isolated incident. The other unions are also experiencing this. So basically, you have a facade of a union, and behind closed doors, there's nobody home. There is nobody enforcing the protection that is needed for people who work in this province. And we are moving into a climate where the BC government is pushing through extreme control measures. Please be informed, aware, participate, and thanks for listening to me again. Have a good day.